Okay, Justin, we've had little glimpses of fall here and there, and you asked me an interesting question a few weeks back. You said, hey, when do we usually get our first strong cold fronts? And I said, well, there's a few different metrics you can measure that by, but I don't know if there's really a standard. It's kind of subjective. So as you decided, I have to dig in deeper to this, what did you find out?
That you were right all along. Not that I doubted you in any way, shape, or form. You know, of course, there's not really a standard metric for what is a fall cold front because they're not really any different from any other cold front. They just start to bring in a little bit more of that cool, crisp air that we have not really seen a whole lot of so far in this fall.
You actually went to the local National Weather Service office and you asked them some questions, try to get down and get the hard facts on the strong cold fronts. What'd they tell you?
There's not really a clear-cut sort of definition for what a strong cold front is. You know, here in Houston, we're adjacent to the Gulf of Mexico. If you didn't already know that, you know, and that really helps to moderate temperature. So unlike, you know, the National Weather Service office in Austin, San Antonio, they have a metric for strong, moderate, and weak, moderate, and strong cold fronts. We just don't really have that because we don't get 30-degree temperature drops normally behind cold fronts.
Not in this time of the year by any means. No way. And also, sometimes this time of the year, it's kind of a dress and layers day, right? You step outside in the morning, you're like, okay, I could use a little jacket. By the afternoon, you're like, is it summer again?
And this is part of why, you know, kind of trying to decide when the first fall cold front arrives is really subjective. So there's a really interesting, not really case study, but there was an instance in 2022, in September 2022, late September at that, where temperatures dropped behind a stronger cold front into the upper 50s. You see that there, low 50s. Temperature. That sounds crisp and refreshing. Pumpkin spice, here I come. But by the afternoon, temperatures were near 90 already at Houston's Bush Intercontinental. So it really, obviously, drier air probably had a lot to do with that. Drier air can expand more and warm more. But still, I mean, 90 degrees behind a cold front's not exactly what I would call fall.
So we sometimes call it not as hot fronts or cool fronts. And I guarantee you, I was telling our viewers at that time, don't go overboard on the fall wear. You've been waiting to put those boots on and those jackets, and that's fine.
I mean, you can if you want.
You can. I'm not going to tell you not to. But if you're in the afternoon wearing that, it's going to feel a lot different. So one thing I like to look at, Justin, is what I call temperature seasons. We look at the average first and last dates. It's pretty common to do with freezes because we want to know when the growing season begins and ends. But I've also done that for just every single temperature range you can think of. So I want to take a quick moment to talk a little bit about when we usually see those different temperature seasons coming our way. So first thing we're going to look at is high temperatures. Okay, so on average, when do we see our first high temperature in the 70s? On average, that occurs around mid-September.
Still waiting on that.
Still waiting on that one, and it usually continues all the way into the middle of May. That doesn't mean every single day you have a high in the 70s, but you'll get one in there, you know, kind of sneak one in with an early front. The 60s, we usually see that by the end of October, runs through about mid-April. The 50s are high in the 50s. That usually occurs by mid-November, and that's when I think people start saying, okay, yeah, it actually
finally fall.
It's starting to feel a little bit, but we can go right back up into the 80s right after that, right? And then normally if we're going to get highs in the 40s, that's usually going to be in the winter months, December, January, February.
I will say, you were mentioning, you know, temperatures in the fall in November specifically. I remember last year putting our Christmas tree up and it was like 85 degrees.
Exactly.
So, coming from Florida, not terribly unused to that, but I'm still shocked.
Yeah, and then there's also low temperature season, so we can kind of get a feel, give you an idea of when is it going to be cool enough to wear my jacket in the morning. So when we usually get our first low in the 50s, that also usually happens by the end of September, which it happened in 2022, but not this year. And then when it comes to lows in the 40s, that's usually mid to late October. We usually get our first low in the 30s, not a freeze, but just a low of 39 or colder mid-November. So again, I think most folks right around the time Thanksgiving is approaching start to see, okay, maybe it actually will cool down at some point.
If I had to guess, these will probably be put back at least a couple of weeks this year.
It does feel like that because the globe has been record warm over the last year. The Gulf of Mexico waters are still incredibly warm, so it wouldn't surprise me even. We talked before about how we haven't had any 90-degree days in recorded history in November. It's on the rocks this year. That one may come down. Hopefully it doesn't, but don't be surprised if it does. All right, Justin, thank you so much for your curiosity on strong cold fronts and adding a little more context to that.
Thank you for having me.
All right.